So speaking of the other two artists, Sung Hee, you're going to stick around and we can ask you, we're going to include you in the Q&A at the end.
Yep.
And you guys, while you're here afterwards, you can talk to any of the artists. But I'm going to invite up Taylor and Karen, and we're going to talk a little bit about their art as well. So come on up, guys.
Hello.
All right, now the gang's all here. So, ladies first, we'll start with Karen here, Karen Akashi. Her current work is a re-engagement in the creative process after 37 years of teaching. Very impressive. She focuses on uncovering the nature of materials. Questions drive the process as the materials display behaviors and outcomes contrary to expectation. The more unsure she is of what to do next, the more open she is in allowing the materials to lead, often with complete changes in direction. Karen's work is compulsive, non-directive, reactive, and open to interpretation. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you.
And we have Taylor Lacayo, who captures electrifying energy and collective consciousness at concerts, unveiling the music's true impact. Through his lens, intense moments are frozen in time. He exposes authentic expressions of individuality that emerge amidst the chaos and exemplifies the transformative power of live performances. Welcome, Taylor.
Thank you.
So everyone has seen everyone's work. Karen is over here on the left wing, I guess, and Taylor's on the right wing, depending on how you approach. I want to start with you, Karen. If you can tell us a little bit more beyond the bio of your background and how you became involved in the art world.
I think it's going to be the same for all of us. It's just one of those things where once you've engaged in it, even at a really young age, you just feel like this is what it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And I even remember, it's funny that Sung Hee was talking about in kindergarten. I remember being in preschool, finger painting, and having a couple of moms standing behind me commenting about how I was putting spokes on the wagon wheels that I was doing on the wagon. And so it was, from that age I was aware of what it was to draw. And my mother would say that she knew when I was upset because I was either going to be drawing or painting or I was going to be banging on the piano. It was like, it was my place to be inside of myself, and I could just get, everybody else just sort of disappears. And so for me, it's always been my comfort. And it had nothing to do with if anyone appreciated what I did. It was just like, I have to do this. Mm-hmm. And so now that I'm retired and I actually have time to spend to do that, it's been real interesting because it's been like 37 years of watching my students engage and have fun. And now I get to do that.
That was probably a really interesting insight, teaching for 37 years and seeing so many students and probably so much talent pass through your classroom.
Yeah, I have, towards the end, and I wish I had been more aware of it early on, but I think also in my 37 years of teaching, my approach to teaching and my sort of partnership with the kids changed a lot too. Originally most art teachers, and I know this is a fact because when I was sitting in interviews to get a teacher to replace me once I retired, one of the questions was, how are you going to set up your curriculum so that you go from beginner all the way to they want to go to Rhode Island School of Design, Art Center, or Pratt Parsons, whatever. And they would all start off with, well, I would have the beginners here, sitting here, and I would have the advanced sitters, students over here, and my department chair would say, oh, no, we have separate class for anyone who's passed the first year. And so to come into a position after probably 20 years of teaching where all of a sudden now I could set it up from beginner all the way through to advanced placement or kids that are going to go on to art schools, I knew exactly where they needed to be. And having been in a gallery situation before I actually started teaching seriously, I knew that there was this jump from school to actual world of being an artist. And so towards the end, when I started getting a whole lot clearer in my head what they needed to be able to, how they needed to think really, to be able to go on to the next level. I mean, I ended up buying, a number of pieces, and of course the kids are always going to say, oh, no, I wanted to gift it to you. It's like, no, you need to realize that your work has value. And so I need to, pay for these pieces. And I go, unfortunately, you probably spend more on the frame than I'm giving you for the piece. But yeah, I've got some things hanging in my closet that would floor you that it was done by like a 17-year-old. Just,
wow.
Not just technical, but just how complex they are, or how thoughtfully, they were on the narrative. And so yeah, to see that come through is probably been, like, in fact, my son-in-law thinks of it as being, my teaching is like another medium.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Taylor, tell us about when you discovered photography. Like, when did photography become a passion for you?
Right, so at an early age, I've always been into music and music production. And from there, I found this sense of like I think what you were saying, this sense of like being within yourself and everything else around you just kind of fades away. And it went from music to then skateboarding, which is because a lot of cool music that I found and I loved was wrapped in skateboarding, old skate films that I would watch. And then from there, because I was so prominent in music and skateboarding, and I just kept avid in that, I stayed following an artist named Ed Templeton, who's a professional skateboarder and also a photographer and painter. And at the time I was living in Burbank, and I grew up here in Huntington Beach, so I was down at Main Street all the time. And he would do these like daily HB Pier photos, where he would just walk around daily and just take photos and put them on a story. And it was a place that like I seemingly just found uninteresting at the time, like because I just grew up there and I knew it so well.
Saw it every day.
Right, but it was like his photographic eye. Like he had this like intentional way of like looking at the world around him as he was just walking through it, that like kind of like sparked a new interest in a place I knew so well. And I thought it was really cool. I was like, wow, I want to get a camera and I want to go do that. Like I want to go walk around my neighborhood and like take photos and look around with intention and find those moments. So that was the start for a photographer, for me at least, was that idea of finding something interesting in something rather that might not be as interesting.
Right.
Maybe does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. It makes total sense to just kind of see the everyday through a new perspective.
Yeah, just like small moments in like an seemingly everyday moment in life of just walking down the street,
Right.
and finding those moments.
So the work that's on display focuses on concerts.
Right. So because I've always I can't get away from music. Music is just part of me. I'm actually an audio engineer as well, so I started recording music and to this day I'm still into music, obviously from the concert photography. But once I got a grasp of how to use a camera, walking around my neighborhood, wanting to capture those moments. At the time I was going to concerts like avidly. I was living in Burbank, so I was like getting into the LA punk scene out there. And I brought my camera to a show and I got the photos developed, and I was like, whoa, these are awesome. Like I was really excited about it. So then I just kept at it, and I kept the consistency. And it just turned into something that became like an obsession. Like constantly being at the show and meeting new people, and just like everyone there for the music and having similar interests throughout the whole process of being there.
Amazing, amazing. This question is for all of you. I'm going to start with you, Griff, because what has been your biggest lesson learned about yourself, or just in general, since you started creating and sharing your art? So what is something that you've learned about yourself since you started painting that maybe you didn't know before?
It's best to be yourself, I guess. To be honest with yourself, the brush, the work, whatever you're doing. A lot of people sometimes are scared by what I paint, or they're like, I don't paint it to like make people happy, or I paint whatever I'm feeling. know. So I found out that it's just best to, you know, be yourself in whatever you do. You know, like that's the best way to get, you know, real work and things that will impact people. You know, I'd rather something scare somebody or make some, you know, feel some type of way than just it looks good on the wall. You know, but then you forget sometimes. It's like, oh, you know, like paint something gnarly is like, you know, but that's, you're dealing with something. You know, for me, painting is just, it's a religious experience, you know. And so I see this moving energy. You know, you're not really painting. You're a medium for any energy that you're going through in life. So when you're painting, you're not really thinking. You know, you're just able to put those emotions through the brush, through the colors, and that type of stuff. So just being honest and real.
Yeah. I think if you evoked an emotion, you were successful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Whatever that emotion might be. And Karen, what about you? What is something that you learned about yourself through creating art?
I think of myself generally as being a fairly timid person. I don't put myself out there very much because, like my husband describes it as being like, I feel like I circle the planet, and then if I look down and it looks like it's okay, I'll stop down for a little while, but if it starts getting kind of weird, I fly back out and I start circling around again. And I think for me, the art helps me understand why I do that. That oddly enough, I'm comfortable with the unknown when I'm working in the art, whereas I'm not comfortable with the unknown in real life. And that I'm more open. In fact, I look forward to when things happen that I didn't expect. And so I guess it's just like the other part of me that I don't let out in a normal situation, that I feel, and I think maybe that's why I feel so grounded and comfortable when I'm making art, because I am who I am. So I think that's something that I've learned. And for me, when I was teaching, it was imparting that on the kids too. Because a lot of them that come into our classes are also looking for something like that as well.
And Taylor, what would you say that you've learned about yourself since you began capturing imagery and sharing it, you know, with people? Because I know, you know, that moment when you got those photos back and you're like, this is cool.
Exactly,
but when you started sharing them with others and, you know, by being a part of this exhibition, what have you learned about yourself?
Well, actually, I think to harp on a little bit of what you said was, because for me, I feel like the biggest thing I learned was not reminding myself not to be afraid of taking risks, because my favorite work has always come out of spontaneous moments. For instance, I can tell you a story. The first time I went on, like one of my biggest moments of like a photography journey with a band was I went on a tour with, which is funny because now I'm roommates with this guy. He's the band leader, but I went on tour and I met all of them in the band the day we left. So I like got to the dude's house, got in the van, and we're on our way. And like I met them all that day, and it was one of those really like just spontaneous moments where the journey was awesome, the experience was great, like all the photos I got were some of my favorite photos, and it's just another reminder that taking risks always, for me, it has always ended up in great experiences and some of my favorite work. That's probably the biggest lesson I've learned from
Excellent. And how do you feel about, you know, being a part of this exhibition?
I mean, I'm just grateful, honestly, to be working with, you know, one of my best friends and another great artist who I've just met through all of this process, and working with Griff's family, Sung Hee, everyone involved. You know, I'm just grateful to be a part of this, around such, you know, loving people.